What if you haven't achieved your goals, not because you don't work hard enough, but because you're secretly scared of what would happen if you did? In this video, I'm going to explain how uncovering your hidden fears can help you reach your goals faster than almost anything else, using an experience from my own life. I was able to lose 20 pounds in a little less than 6 months when I had tried everything else and nothing had worked. I did this and it worked. And the best thing is, it's really quite quick. It only takes 20 minutes and a 2-week commitment. All you need is pen and paper. This is also a video about my weight loss journey. Before I get started telling that story, I want to acknowledge that weight loss is not necessarily an indicator of health. Sometimes weight gain is a good thing. If this video is not supportive to you in any way, by all means, please click off now. I'm just talking about my own personal experience. And I had been at a healthy weight for most of my young adulthood, and then pandemic happened. Like so many of us, I gained weight really rapidly and in a way that had to have been just because of extreme stress. I had never gained weight like that before. I'd put on 15 pounds in like a month. Then about a year later, I broke my kneecap in a workplace accident, and 3 days later, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So I suddenly had very severe stress. And when I was recovering from knee surgery, I obviously couldn't exercise for a time. And then when I did, I couldn't do anything too intense. So yeah, I just had a lot of stress. Then I decided to move to a different state and start a new career. The upshot is between 2020 and 2022, I had gained almost 40 pounds. After about 6 months had passed from my knee surgery, I knew that I needed to rebuild my strength in that leg, but I also learned through researching that losing weight is actually a good way to manage chronic pain, if you have any weight to lose, in the knee, because each pound of body weight equals 4 pounds of extra pressure on the knee joint. And I will do anything to avoid needing another knee surgery again. And so, because I now have an elevated risk for arthritis and all these other problems, I just knew that I had to make a change. So I hired a personal trainer. I started working out several times a week, lifting weights, and I did make incredible progress in terms of my strength. But every time I tried to stick to a moderate calorie deficit, I fell off the wagon almost immediately. And I couldn't pinpoint why. It surprised me every time, even after it became a pattern. And I'm sure at this point, some of you are probably nodding your heads, feeling like, oh, I know how that feels. Where you know that what you have to do, whether it's weight loss or something else, is really simple. It might not be easy, it may take effort, but it's not complicated. It just requires effort and consistency, and yet for some reason your discipline fails you, even though you know it's something you want to achieve. So after working with a trainer, not being able to lose any weight at all, really, I found a solution that was quite surprising and unexpected. And it was in a book called Existential K by Dr. Carolyn Elliott. It's a great book and you absolutely should read it if you haven't already. It's kind of out there. But one of the practices in that book that she recommends is something called Deepest Fear Inventory, or DFI for short. I think it has some origins on some level in the recovery space, or like recovery movement for people who have struggled with substance abuse. but it's applicable to a lot of other things in life. But before I explain deepest fear inventory to you, I have to explain the part of you that it accesses, that it helps you access, which is called your shadow. I did not come up with that. That is the term coined by the pioneering psychoanalyst Carl Jung. He, along with Freud, is sort of the founding father of modern psychology. And the idea for the shadow is that basically, as a little kid and a young adult, you learn that there are certain aspects of you that are either not accepted in your family of origin or in wider society, at school, at work, etc. And a lot of this is pro-social and good. Like 5-year-olds need to learn in kindergarten that they can't bite their friends when they get in an argument. It isn't all bad to learn that some aspects of who we are not appropriate in every situation. So we end up rejecting and disowning certain parts of who we are in order to fit in. And by the time you get to midlife, late 20s, early 30s, you've put so much stuff in your shadow that I think of it like a bag over your shoulder. It starts to get really heavy because there's so much stuff in there. The other thing about the shadow, why it's called that, is because these parts of you, they operate outside of your conscious awareness. You've disowned them, but they're still there and they come out sideways. I'm sure if you have ever been in a meeting with two women who don't like each other or who are having a conflict, you've seen the shadow in action, because women, at least in Western culture, are taught that it's not appropriate to show anger or aggression. And so what we end up doing is being kind of passive aggressive. And we think that we're hiding it, but actually everybody can see that you and Kelly don't agree about the next quarterly plan and the budget, and it's right there. But if you told them about that, like, hey, you guys seemed like really tense in that meeting, they'd be like, oh, I wasn't tense at all. I think Kelly's great. What are you talking about? That's the shadow in action. And it doesn't just make us awkward and weird in work meetings. It can also be an inner saboteur. It can stop us from going after the things that we want, but because we don't know that it's operating, it's like we can't get it to stop. And so deepest fear inventory is really helpful because it helps you access your shadow really quickly and effectively. And it does this by helping you access your hidden fears. We have a lot of fears connected to the things that we want. Fear and desire, I would like to say, are like fraternal twins. They're two sides of a coin, because oftentimes we have a lot of unconscious fears that are running the show. And I found that when I did this practice, all of a sudden it became much easier for me to go after the things I truly wanted. So the shadow often shows up as we say we want to do something, and yet our actions don't line up with it. Where there's a gap between who we say we are and who we actually are. And for me, that was showing up in my nutrition and my lifestyle in general. But almost everybody has some version of this where they say they want to do something, and then when they actually try to do it, they don't. And yet they can't really explain why. I couldn't explain why. That's the key. That's how you know, oh, this probably my shadow is operating, because I don't know why I'm not doing this. So now let's get into how to actually do deepest fear inventory. It's really simple. All you need is a pen and paper and the ear of a trusted friend. So you start by writing at the top of the page, Dear Universe, or Dear God, Dear whomever, however you address divinity or however you acknowledge that there are forces higher and bigger than you, and that you are not the most important thing. So that could be the universe, it could be God, it could be higher self, it could be your guardian angel. You write, "Dear universe, dear God, I absolutely refuse to have whatever it is that you want because I have deep fear that I." So when I did this, I wrote, "Dear God, I absolutely refuse to weigh X pounds and keep the weight off with ease because I have deep fear, ... Then below that, you write at least 20 fears as quick as you can, stream of consciousness. And some of them might seem repetitive. Some of them might not feel true to you the first few times you do this. It's really important to just keep the pen and paper moving. And you phrase it as, because I have deep fear that I, because I have deep fear that I. You can also phrase it as, because I have deep fear that I am unwilling to feel an emotion associated with something. What you find when you do this is actually there's a lot of fears you have around achieving your goal. When I did it, what came up for me over and over again was, I have deep fear of being ostracized or not liked by other women if I become more conventionally attractive. Another thing I had was fear of boredom. Like was afraid of the monotony of sticking to a calorie deficit for several months and not having dessert. I was afraid that family members might envy or resent me for achieving something that they couldn't achieve either. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, we can stop ourselves from doing something out of a sense of unconscious loyalty to the people we love. If the people closest to you struggled with money or gambling debt or something like that, you might feel so bad for building your savings because they have never been able to, that you stop yourself from doing that. That kind of thing happens. But you write about 20 fears, and then at the bottom of that, you write a prayer or a wish that your chosen representation of divinity will just remove these fears from your life, so that way you can carry out your true destiny, that you can, be true to God's will for you, etc. Amen. So that's writing it out. The second step that you are going to have to do is call or leave a voice note to a trusted friend. This is the scariest part, but it is also really effective. Carolyn says you should do this because it doubles the consciousness of the fear. So not only are you becoming more conscious of the fear, but so is your friend. And so it means like your shadow is not only being seen by you, it's also being seen by somebody close to you. But it needs to be someone you trust, because you are telling them your deepest fears. Also, it's important to set ground rules with them. After you read your fears aloud to them, they're not going to engage with the fears or talk about it. It's not a therapy session. They're just there to listen. All they have to do is say, "Thank you for your honesty." Once you've done that, and I like doing this with voice notes because you don't have to interrupt your friend's day. They can just listen to it whenever they have time. Once you've sent your voice note, you're going to take the piece of paper and tear it out of your journal. And then you're going to tear it up in little bitty shreds, or burn it, or flush it down the toilet, throw it away. Don't skip this step. Doing this is acting on your subconscious mind that responds really well to symbols. Tearing this sheet of paper up is symbolically saying, these fears are no longer my story. That's the whole process. So you write out your fears, stream of consciousness, you admit them to someone close to you, then you tear up the paper, throw it away. And you do this once a day for 2 weeks, the whole process. This repetition seems weird. It's also really important because when you do that, you become desensitized to the fears. You're going to end up writing the same things over and over again. Some new fears will pop up every time, but you're also going to write out a lot of the same fears in just slightly different wording as you do this. This is the point. The point is to make the fears so boring that they're no longer fascinating or interesting to your little shadow that's been running the show. So I did this for 2 weeks, just like I described. And the next week, I re-downloaded my Fitness Pal for the 1000th time, and I set a very moderate calorie deficit. In the past, I think I had tried to go too hard and try to lose too much at once, which a lot of people do, and that's miserable. Your body ramps up your hunger cues when you do that. So I picked a really mild calorie deficit that I thought, okay, I can sustain this. But then also there were randomly creators that showed up like on my YouTube feed that I had never seen before, who had other really helpful advice for fat loss, especially for being a woman in your 30s. It's a little different than when you're 22. And one of those people was Madeline Raskin, who was so helpful. But I just found it mysteriously much easier to stick to this goal. And I lost about 21 pounds between June of 2025 to December 2025. And then between January 2026 and now, I lost about 6 more pounds. Much slower. One of the things that had tripped me up before was being tempted to over-restrict, and that always backfired. And this time, I just didn't have the impulse to do that. The other thing I want to say is, it's not that weight loss suddenly became super easy. There were still days that it was hard, and it did mean I had to change my lifestyle. I couldn't go out to the bars as often as I used to. That meant I wasn't seeing some of my friends as much as I was before. I did have to give up dessert for a long time, or have much smaller portions of it. It just became doable. I just suddenly was like, yeah, this is how it is. This is reality, and I'm living in the reality of this decision that I've made, which is that I want to make a change. It was true, like some of my friends did not like that I had changed my lifestyle. But that also showed me like, oh, maybe they're not as close of friends as I thought. And yeah, that was painful. But ultimately it was less painful than trying to live my life so that other people would accept me instead of living my life to do what was actually best for me. I would say, what are the goals you can use it on? It should be achievement oriented, and the goal you list at the top of the page should be measurable or have a binary component. So, because otherwise you won't know whether or not you've achieved it, whether that's weight loss, or maybe you want to increase your bench press 1 rep max by X pounds. Maybe you want a certain dollar amount in your checking account or savings. Maybe you want to be admitted to nursing school. Like, it should be a really clear goal that is measurable. Like, do you have that in your checking account or not? Are you enrolled in that school or not? Otherwise, it's kind of wishy-washy. So that would be my first tip. The second tip is don't tell anyone that you're doing this while you're doing it, except for your close friend. You guys can do it for each other. Like, you can be each other's accountability buddies. If you know that there's a friend of yours who like consistently goes after things and gets them done. That's what I did. I was like, oh, who do I know who's achievement oriented and tends to make things happen for themselves? I'm going to ask this person to do this with me because they might also find it useful since they like accomplishing stuff. If you really feel like you don't have anyone to tell it to, you can just say it out loud, but I would advise trying to find an accountability buddy because it's really helpful and kind of freeing, honestly. So if there's a change you're trying to make in your life that you keep self-sabotaging, I would love for you to give Deepest Fear Inventory a try and let me know in the comments how it goes for you. If you want the most in-depth instructions, you should pick up Carolyn's book, which I will link in the description. This is not paid for by her. I just think it's a great resource. If you like this video, please subscribe. I'm going to be posting more self-development videos like this. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Why are outros always the hardest thing to film? I don't know why, but ending a video is the hardest part. Starting it is easy. Ending it, terrible.